Particularly for American Indian and Alaska Native programs under the jurisdiction of the Interior and Environment Appropriations Subcommittee. I especially want to welcome the distinguished tribal elders and leaders testifying today and in the audience. Most of you have traveled a long way to get back here this week, just as I did yesterday to get back here. I hope that you'll seize the opportunity to meet with other members of Congress outside of this subcommittee to remind them that honoring the nation's trust obligations is a responsibility shared by all members of Congress, regardless of our states or congressional districts. I can assure you that your voices are heard by this subcommittee. For those new to this process, today's hearings are just the start of a dialogue we've come to depend upon to help us make smart choices in the budget and to earn the votes of our colleagues. American Indian and Alaska Native programs will continue to be a nonpartisan priority for this subcommittee, just as they have been in recent years under the chairmanships of Democrats and Republicans alike. Before we begin, I have a bit of housekeeping items to share. Committee rules prohibit the use of outside cameras and audio equipment during the hearings. The hearings will be viewed, can be viewed in its entirety on the committee's website, and an official hearing transcript will be available at gop.gov. I will call each panel of witnesses to the table, one panel at a time. Each witness has 5 minutes to present their testimony. Your full written testimony will be included in the record, so please don't feel pressured to cover everything in 5 minutes. Finishing in less than 5 minutes may even earn you more brownie points, but we have to abide by the 5-minute rule in order to keep on schedule with the many, many different witnesses we have, and we want to hear from all of them. So welcome. It's glad to have you here today. We will be using a timer to track the progress of each witness. When the yellow light turns yellow, the witness will have 1 minute remaining to conclude his or her remarks. When the light blinks red, I will have to ask the witness to stop. We'll hear from every witness on each panel before members will be provided an opportunity to ask questions. Because we have a full day ahead, I request that we try to keep things moving in order to stay on schedule and respect each other's times. I'm sure many of you have planes to catch. With that, I thank you all again for being here today, and I'm happy to yield to our distinguished ranking member, Ms. McCullum, for any opening remarks she might have.
Mr. Chair, I've heard about these brownie points for a couple of days. Did you bake any brownies?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And I'm good at it.
All right. Well, no, sincerely, thank you all for coming here. This has been a very enlightening day and a half, and I look forward to the last section even teaching me more on how to be more effective in doing my job for Indian country. Thank you.
Our first panel is Darrell Shea, the acting chairman of the Shoshone-Bannock Tribes. Mary Jane Miles, chairman of the Nez Perce Tribal Executive Committee. Rodney Mike, the chairman of the Duckwater Shoshone Tribe, and Ted Howard, chairman of the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes of the Duck Valley Reservation. Darrell, you're first.
Thank you. I want to introduce myself. My name is Darrell Shea. I'm the acting chairman of the Shoshone-Bannock Tribe, and I wanted to mention one of my ancestors. You guys probably know about her, is Sacagawea. I come from the what we call the Agaidika Band of Shoshone, but we got moved over to Fort Hall. We're part of the Shoshone-Bannock Tribes from Fort Hall, Idaho now. So I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to thank the committee for this opportunity. From what I understand, it's a very important committee, you know, when we're talking about financing. Yeah, and then I wanted to thank Representative Simpson for all the efforts he's done for Indian country over the years, even being a chairman of this committee. I guess, you know, my testimony will be kind of guarded because that painting there, I've witnessed that group of people many times in my lifetime coming up. And, you know, the women of our tribe are really strong, and they provide a lot of guidance for us. So that's an appropriate picture to be sitting here, especially if Shoshone people talk. Most Shoshone people will identify with strong women like that. So today my remarks will pretty much focus on the efforts to protect my people from all the different things that are going on. One of the things that we have is infrastructure that's old and deteriorated that we inherited from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Most of the stuff was built back in the 40s and the 50s, and since we've taken over, we've had to deal with that. They're old, they're unsafe. Another area is in the environment. We have a lot of contaminated water, a lot of our land's contaminated, both on the reservation and for our off-reservation, because we exercise off-reservation treaty rights. Another important area that you guys have been dealing with kind of on a national scene, but it hits us harder at home, is the health care. You know, we depend on the funding that's available to us, and it's critical. The Treaty of Fort Bridger, 1868 treaty, required the U.S. to protect the Shoshone people, and our land on the reservation is considered our permanent home now. I mean, we were nomadic in the earlier days, but that's our home now, and we can't go anywhere else. So we have to take extra care to protect it. And there is, where's that picture? There's another picture here. I have an assistant. He's not Vanna, but probably more like the Lone Ranger. I'm Tono, but he's my assistant. It's right there. It kind of points out the off-reservation treaty rights exercise of it, culture and stuff. Then we have the health clinic. It was built in the late 70s. And then our high school, there on there. And then there's another picture of somebody that you're going to recognize. He's standing right there. But even though we have some of the modern, up-to-date facilities, we still need the financing to run the programs within those facilities. So that's important there. And we urge the committee to provide as much adequate funding as we can to address our needs there in Indian country. Like I said before, we inherited old BIA roads. They're unsafe. They're probably substandard to, they cause a lot of like wrecks. You can't touch the shoulder of the road before you end up rolling over. And a lot of these roads are in the back country of our reservation. And they used to be called farm to market roads, but we're running out of space to develop, so some of our housing gets developed along those roads, and they're used more by our people rather than the farmers. There's other infrastructure needs that I provided in my written testimony about the sewer and water upgrades that we need. We have a lot of contaminated water that we have to deal with, both from the industries that are adjacent to the reservation as well as from agriculture. Going to the environment, I'd like to urge the committee to protect funding for the tribal programs that's provided by EPA. And EPA has become one of those agencies that's, I guess, responsible for contaminated water, the air, and the land. And our people are getting sick from a lot of that. We're noticing a lot of respiratory illnesses and even some cancerous development. And even off the reservation and both on, our traditional ways of life and culture depend on that. A healthy environment helps us protect that, and we depend on the EPA. One of the things that we continue to do is spearfishing up there on that picture, and that takes place every summer. We have two Superfund sites that are located on the reservation. One of them is called the Eastern Mashad Flats, and then the other one is a gay mine. And both of them produced phosphate at one time. And the two sites that process these things are closed now. But just because they're closed and not there, the effects of their contamination and their legacy is creating an unsafe environment there. Speaking of EPA, we have we've kind of, over time, we've developed a love-hate relationship with them. But the solution that we keep hearing is that, and it's not the solution is not to slash their budgets. We want to make them work to protect our land, and we have been. We request this subcommittee direct the EPA to clean up and remove the contamination at those sites, and direct the Department of Interior to work with the EPA and the tribes on this matter. Going to the health area, in Indian Health Service mainly, we urge the committee to fully fund Indian Health Service because Our Indian people are getting sick, and they're hurting from the unsafe infrastructure, the environment, the contamination, and along with that, we have the problems of substance abuse. We have a pretty modern health clinic over there, but if we don't have the financing or the doctors and the staffing needs, it doesn't help very much if you have that. So substance abuse and the other conditions are leading to extreme violence, and we're noticing that. Just so you know, at one time, Fort Hall, in the 1960s and the 70s, our tribe had one of the highest rates of suicide in the United States. And unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of that come back again, and we don't want it to escalate to any rates higher than what it is. So we urge the subcommittee to prioritize these community wellness initiatives because we don't see very much funding in the area of wellness. We want to create a wellness center as a way to, to combat a lot of the illnesses rather than treating them after they happen. We want to try to prevent them from happening. So I want to thank you for your consideration, and I hope I made some brownie points.
Thank you for being here today. You went on a couple minutes longer than 5 minutes, and that comes out of Mary Jane's time. I'm just kidding, Mary Jane. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Subcommittee. I appreciate the time, and I say Ketia out Nimipu. That's thank you in this purse. And I acknowledge and express our deep gratitude that the subcommittee affords us in time and in monies that you look for our programs on our tribal reservations. And I say Katiayo for our appreciation in the recently enacted fiscal year 17 Consolidated Appropriations Act, and it increased funding in BIA, BIE, and IHS, increased it to $60 million and $232 million, hugely significant to the citizens of our tribes and likened to restoring and maintaining habitat for all the creatures that we subsist on. Katiaya also for the funding for the contract support costs to IHS and BIA, and we hope this funding continues. I will summarize recommendations that the tribe requests in our letter to you or our testimony, written testimony to you. The Environmental Protection Agency, these programs and services does for the tribe what we want to do ourselves to keep the Nez Perce Reservation in ideal condition for the animals and the fish. Idaho experienced a record-setting year of 2012, 2014, and 2015 in wildfires. The result was extremely poor levels of air quality, and the tribe's air program provided critical health benefits for tribes and non-tribal members in our area. The tribe addresses pollution from underground storage tanks, brownfields, and we recommend 1, Indian General Assistance Program funded be at $75 million. 2, tribal allocation under Clean Water Act 106 program increased to 20%. 3, $13 million for tribal air quality management. 4, $80 million for brownfields program. 5, $13 million provided in lieu of percent cap on tribal funding for non-point source pollutant control. Indian Health Service, we have 2 clinics, Nimipu clinics, one at Lapwai and one in Kamiai. They serve 3,950 clients each year, computing to 40,000 visits. We still have to rely on third-party billing and supplemental funding to ensure timely, effective service to our clients. We ask to continue the $5 billion funding enjoyed in the 2017 and have an increased purchase referred care to 51.9 million. Fish and Wildlife Services, we rely heavily on the U.S. Forest Fish and Wildlife Service, which manages the Kuski Fish Hatchery. Recently, we lost 60,000 juvenile due to a malfunction of a switch that didn't turn back on. The Lewiston Morning Tribune reported it, and there was a general pall of a dismay over the workforce. I was expecting to get a sympathy card. Sorry for your loss. Through these grants, tribes worked on diverse issues as wolf monitoring, bighorn sheep research, rare plant conservation, and condor habitat research. We urge increased funding, 66 million, and increased tribal share by 2 million. They provide a large return for a small investment. These grants are a few of the sources of funds that we can tap into for wildlife management. The Nez Perce tribe has long been a proponent of self-determination for tribes and believe our primary obligation is to protect the treaty reserved rights of the tribe and its members. This work cannot be accomplished unless the United States continues to affirm and follow through on its trust responsibility to tribes by properly funding programs. All of the work of the tribe is guided by this principle. Congressman Simpson has asked to bring members of this subcommittee to Idaho, and the Nimipu would welcome you to a land that we share with the deer, elk, moose, bear, wolf, bighorn sheep, mountain lion, that watches the eagle announce the return of the salmon alongside the trout and now the coho. Come to one of our powwows. It is no longer a place where we're contemplating a war. We are just having fun and enjoying our culture. Come and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Rodney?
Thanks for allowing me to come and visit with you folks. I must say that you guys have a really busy city here. This is the first time I've been on the East Coast. I have never been past Colorado, so it's been a real adventure. So I'm really impressed by the country here.
There's an old song that goes, if I ever go east of Denver again, it'll be too damn soon. So those of us in the West understand that.
Yes, it is beautiful here, beautiful. But it's a busy place, and I know you guys are busy people. Give you a brief history. I am the chairman of the Duckwater Tribe. We are located about 4 hours north of Las Vegas in the central part of Nevada, more on the east coast by the Utah side. Very small community, about 420 people, total enrollment, about 150, give or take, who's home on the weekend, so very small place. We're one of the very first 7 tribes that was a self-governance tribe, okay? So we're kind of proud of that. But funding is always an issue. Money is always an issue, and probably will always be an issue. But when we hear of budget cuts, sequestrations, and things like that, that really affects us, and affects us deeply because of our funding. We have no economical development in our area. We're looking for things that can possibly down the road in the future give us that. But being where we're located at is very difficult. We live in a state that is known for mining, probably one of the richest states in the country, but yet we're so far away from that, and our resources are just not there. So the funding that is provided is very, very important. I don't know how to stress that. Our population base is 50 and over, is the huge part of that population base. The young people no longer stay there because they can't. There's no jobs there. The tribe provides most of the employment for the people that live there. We have ranchers there, but ranching cannot stand alone. They have to find jobs to support. It's a glorified habit, really, is what it is. So without funding on the IHS side and the BIA side, it becomes very difficult for our people. Our remote location, we have to travel quite a ways to get the basics. 75 miles to go get a loaf of bread, tank of gas, you know, things like that. Or it's normal for us, but it proposes a problem, especially when it comes to health care for our people, because location is not exactly attractive for physicians and nurses and things like that that we need. You know, we just expanded our health clinic, and trying to find a doctor to come and work there has been really difficult, you know. When they find out the nearest Walmart is 3 hours away towards Ted's country, you know, they don't really want to come, you know. So these are some of the issues that we're faced with. And health care is a really big one. It really is. Like I said, with our population base being 50 and over, the majority of the population base being 50 and older, and the elders. We also have an infrastructure problem with roads also. Our roads are lapidated. They've been there for a lot of years. There's a one-way in situation, dirt road on the other end out going to the next town. Okay, we live in the north in a big long valley. We have our non-native friends down below us, so we all share the same problem. They also have to deal with the dirt road whenever they need to go north. So I guess what I'd like to ask of you guys is to see that the contract support continues, very needed in our country, both on the IHS and the BIA side, okay? And see that sequestration does not affect IHS. See that we have funding for diabetes, which happens to be a really big problem in Indian country. I'm a member of that club, I guess you can say, but without what I've learned from education and dieting and things like that, I probably would have never known. But anyway, that's my spiel, and I want some brownies, so I'm going to quit, and I thank you very much.
Thanks, Rodney, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ed?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Acting Chairman Simpson, Ranking Member McCollum, subcommittee members. My name is Ted Howard, and I'm the chairman for the Shoshone-Paiute tribes. Our reservation is half in Idaho and half in Nevada, and almost dissected down the middle. Thank you for inviting me to testify here today concerning the fiscal year 2018 budget for the BIA, BLM, and the Indian Health Service. The Shoshone-Paiute tribes are grateful for this subcommittee's long-standing support for Indian tribes and for sharing your understanding of Indian country with your House colleagues. As you have done for fiscal year 2017, I ask that you reject the administration's budget blueprint for fiscal year 2018, which calls for unwarranted reductions in non-defense agency appropriations important to tribes. If enacted, the budget would cause great harm to tribal communities and to Native Americans, who more than most Americans rely heavily on federal appropriations across multiple federal agencies, not just the Interior and Department of Health and Human Services. Our priorities for fiscal year 2018 include the following. With regard to the Indian Health Service, we appreciate the $232 million increase provided for 2017 for the Indian Health Service and request an increase in funding for clinical services, including purchase/referred care, contract support, costs, and facilities construction. We are a remote reservation and would like to expand our health programs to our 2,000 tribal members. We urge the committee to continue its current approach of employing a separate indefinite appropriation for contract support costs. With regard to the BIA funding, we ask the committee to continue its commitment to public safety on tribal reservations by providing increases to the BIA Public Safety and Justice Program next year. The BIA struggles to provide adequate law enforcement services on the Duck Valley Reservation. We received a modest $250,000 in supplemental funding to fight recidivism on the reservation under the BIA's Special Initiatives Program, and we are seeking just a minute, lost my, and we are working to develop alternatives to incarceration with limited facilities and program personnel. It is a struggle, and increase in funds would help us renovate FEMA trailers that we plan to use for education, family support, for incarcerated youth, equine activities, emergency medical services. We estimate a $2.5 million budget for the infrastructure for these programs. We also request statutory language for which authorizes the purchase of temporary trailers and modular units using special initiative funds for rural communities. Housing is often the linchpin to program success. Regarding the BIA road maintenance program, we appreciate the $3.6 million increase and ask the committee to add an additional $10 million in fiscal year 2018. That should be prioritized for the purchase of replacement heavy road maintenance equipment in rural regions like Western Region and BIA Eastern Nevada Agency. The Western Region has the highest percentage of BIA system roads, 26%. Our equipment is ancient and repair shops do not carry the parts anymore. While BIA or IHS may not be the primary agency for broadband, we ask the committee to increase funding for this much-needed utility. We require $500,000 in federal funds to construct a new fiber network. Regarding the Bureau of Land Management, please provide the funding for the Wahi Initiative, a joint effort by ranchers, recreationalists, county and state officials, and the Shoshone-Paiute tribes to protect sacred lands and manage public lands in the tri-state area of Idaho, Nevada, and Oregon. Increased recreational use in the Wahi River Wilderness area threatens cultural resources. BLM's Boise District has 3 to 4 rangers to cover 3 million acres of land. We seek recurring funds to pay our chief tribal ranger, continue flying patrols, hire an assistant director, a tribal ranger, and part-time youth rangers. We contribute the vast majority of the required budget, but it is a burden. We seek $600,000 to fully fund this important activities that support our culture. We also support additional funds for the BLM Cultural Resources Management to protect historic properties on public lands and request interior funding to expand the native plant program and our greenhouses. We cooperate with the BLM to propagate and make available native seedlings for planting on public lands. Finally, please increase the BIA's Trust Natural Management and its Tribal Management Development Program and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks programs to support the tribe's program to return salmon to the Duck Valley Indian Reservation, which had been a staple food source for our people up to 1930, when dam construction along the Columbia and Snake River cut off our reservations from the salmon runs. And we've returned salmon to the reservation waters in 2015 and 2016 and took them by spearfishing. Please support our trap and haul program. Thank you.
Thank you all. Obviously, this is a panel that's near and dear to my heart, being from Idaho and northern Nevada. I know there's a great deal of needs there, and I do hope to get the committee out. We've talked about this for a while, and visit some of the tribal lands out in Idaho and let them see what's going on at the various places. So I thank you for your testimony. I know that Chairman Calvert and Ranking Member McCollum have done a great job, I think, in this last budget in trying to protect funding for those programs that are vital to Native Americans. And I'm sure they'll continue to do that in the future. And it's been a bipartisan effort. So appreciate you being here. I just was coming back to Washington a couple weeks ago, and I was walking through the airport, and there was a book there that had just come out called Thunder in the Mountains. And so I picked it up and read it. And it's a fascinating history of the Nez Perce War and General Howard and Chief Joseph and stuff. It's really very thorough and very interesting. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all. Betty, did you?
I appreciate the tribal nations speaking up on behalf of the work that the EPA does, both in land and water. and the Superfund sites too, because lots of times when people think of fund sites, they think of big chemical spills and things like that. They're not thinking of what's actually happening out in rural America. So we're going to have the EPA administrator at some point in, and I really appreciate you speaking up and speaking out about this and the work that they do, because as you know, that budget's one of the biggest ones to be looked at targeting. So thank you very, very much for your words.
And while I shouldn't say this, but that's never stopped me before. Yeah, between me and you and the walls here, I'm not too worried about the Trump budget. Because frankly, I just don't think it could pass, even if, you know, there are too many things in there that are slashed and burned, and things that members of Congress care about, and our tribal responsibilities are part of that. So it was interesting to hear the request for funding on the Waihi initiative. I want to sit down and talk to you a little bit more about what needs to be done on that. I know that was an effort by Senator Crapo and getting that important bill passed, but now it has to be funded in a variety of ways. So I want to work with you on that. So anyway, thank you all for being here, and we'll be out as soon as I get. Darren's going to want to come to Idaho again. He's been out once. And anyway, I'm going to have to adjourn for just about 15 to 20 minutes before we call the next panel. We have 2 votes, and we ought to be back ASAP. Shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes, and then we'll call our next panel up, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Hearing will come to order. Our second panel, we're joined by Tony Small, Councilman from the Ute Tribe of Utah, Levy D. Carrick, President of the Chippewa-Ottawa Resource Authority, and Patrick Roberts, Health Policy Fellow of the National Native American AIDS Prevention Center. So welcome, and we'll start with you, Mr. Small, for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. My name is Tony Small. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Ute Tribal Business Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify on behalf of the Ute Indian Tribe and the Uinta Ouray Reservation. We ask that the subcommittee take action on 2 issues that are vital to us and many other tribes. We need the subcommittee's immediate support for our new Justice Center, and we ask for your continued support for Indian energy development. First, we need $4.85 million in annual funds to staff and operate our new Justice Center. We have been waiting for BIA to replace our original BIA jail for more than 10 years. In 2006, our BIA operated and funded jail was condemned. We spent many years near the top of BIA's priority list, but nothing happened. Instead, BIA paid to house a few detainees in the county jails. After it became clear that both the BIA and the Department of Justice had stopped funding the construction of detention facilities, we had no choice but to act. We spent the last 5 years designing and building a new $36 million BIA Justice Center. We built this new BIA Justice Center with our own money. Construction followed strict federal requirements and was supported by BIA's Office of Justice Services. In August 2016, the new facility was opened. As you can see, we have the Justice Center, pictures of the Justice Center there. The Justice Center includes our tribal court, our BIA Police Command Center, and is available to be BIA's primary adult and juvenile detention facility. But today the jail is only partially open. This is due to the lack of BIA operating funds. This is why I am here. We need our BIA jail money back. We need it updated to accommodate our current needs. Our needs have increased from gangs and drugs being brought onto our reservation. BIA has an average of 39 adult prisoners to 14 beds. Let me be clear, the Ute Indian Tribe has done its part by funding construction. The BIA's Justice Center, the federal government has a treaty and trust responsibility to provide law enforcement on our reservation. Our new Justice Center could be a national leader for providing alcohol and substance abuse treatment, but we can't do any of this without your support. We ask that you open up Medicare and Medicaid funding to help support alcohol and substance abuse treatment for detainees. Many studies show that the relationship between addiction and crime on Indian reservations, but current law prevents Medicare and Medicaid funding from helping to solve the problem. Current law also restricts IHS and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration from treating addiction in tribal and federal jails. How can we fix this problem if we cannot treat those that are most in need? The Ute Indian Tribe strongly supports federal policies promoting alternatives to detention. These are cost-effective solutions that treat the real cause of criminal activity, but without Medicare, Medicaid, and IHS funding, alternatives to detention will never become a real alternative. The second issue we need your immediate action on is funding for Indian energy. And we appreciate the subcommittee's support for BIA's Indian Energy Service Center. In fiscal year 16, the subcommittee provided $4.5 million to establish the service center. The center will support efforts at the local level to process energy permits. To support the work of the service center, we ask the subcommittee provide $13 million needed to fully fund the service center, so that it can open and begin operating as soon as possible. Just like the law enforcement, supporting Indian energy is an area where this subcommittee can make a real impact in the lives of tribal members. Indian Energy funds our government and services we provide our members. It also employs thousands of people and supports economic activity across our region. Despite these benefits, BIA's budget for oil and gas development is usually about 3% of the funding BLM receives for oil and gas development on federal lands. BIA energy budget is about the same as Fish and Wildlife Service energy budget. This is unacceptable. Tribal governments provide life-saving and essential services to our communities. The federal government's support for tribal law enforcement and justice must be increased to meet the need, and we need a budget bigger than Fish and Wildlife Service budget to unlock the potential of our energy resources. Finally, we ask that you fund BLM and Forest Service work on Bears Ears National Monument. We understand that Congressman Chaffetz asked that you not provide any funding for agency work related to Bears Ears. Bears Ears is a sacred landscape that needs protection. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Levi Carrick, Chippewa Ottawa Resource Authority. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
All right. Okay, I'm sorry. She works. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of subcommittee. My name is Levi Carrick. I'm the president of the Bay Mills Indian Community, which is a little reservation fishing village on the east shores of the east end of Lake Superior, where the St. Mary's River dumps all that clean water down in Lakes Huron and Michigan through an 80-mile river system. So, but I'm here on behalf of Chippewa Ottawa Resource Authority, which is an intertribal resource management organization that was established by the 5 federally recognized Indian tribes in the state of Michigan, whose ancestors signed the treaty of March 28, 1836. This treaty reserved the right to hunt, fish, trap, gather on the lands and waters that were ceded to the United States. This area encompasses about 2/3 of the state of Michigan, the landmass, and large portions of Lake Superior, Michigan, and Huron. So it's a vast area. And CORA provides for the management and preservation and enhancement of all species and habitats which are within this area. Requested the opportunity to testify today just to personally express CORA's appreciation for the Rights Protection Implementation Program, RPI, easier to say that way, right? Funding request for CORA that is contained in the President's 2018 budget for Department of Interior. RPI funds enable CORA's tribes and their members to regulate and exercise the reserved right to hunt, fish, trap, and gather on the lands and waters. But I have to say the RPI funds we do receive is nowhere near enough to accomplish what is needed to protect the resources. Seems like every day we hear of a new invasive species that we have to deal with, whether it be a plant, animal, microscopic. We have to find a way to deal with it, and they're coming more and more. So we do this management through different funding sources in addition to the RPI. I guess I don't know if we really say climate change anymore. I think new administration don't like that term. But that funding that was available was a help. But now, in the most recent Green Book, it's on a competitive basis. That makes it difficult. We should not compete trying to protect the resources. So if something can be cleaned up on that so that it goes directly to the tribes, it would be appreciated. The way things are going lately, we're getting a little more concerned. For instance, Secretary of Interior recently in a statement somewhere, it was all over the press. He said if the tribes had an off-ramp, they'd take it, maybe become corporations. Well, we're not interested in that. I think you probably got 560 or 80 other tribes that tell you the same. So we're not interested in that because we're here on a treaty right, and treaty rights are permanent. So we appreciate any assistance that you can offer and when it comes up, if it comes up. So also, like GLRI was on a chopping block on the President's 2017 budget, where he reduced it by more than 90%, I think it was 97, actually. And he wants to eliminate the EPA. we give a big thanks to all involved that understood it wasn't the right thing to do, and you put that back in, and I didn't even hear no arguing about it. Basically, it was back in the budget, so we went from a big low to big high instantly, because it shows you're concerned about the environment and what we have out there, so thank you. The EPA is the funding agency for many programs under GLRI, and you might consider direct funding some of these to the tribes themselves, the GLRI funds, so that we can, especially with the stresses putting on the EPA, hopefully they're still here, but we support any fight on that also. That, you know, as the tribes are proven over and over again that they are protectors of the lands and the waters, and so give them the funding to continue to try at least to go. But CORA, we're operating under a 1980 consent decree with the state and the federal government, which basically comes to a head here in 2020. We have to renegotiate, and we're starting that process now. But we hold regular executive council meetings with the state and the feds on fish and wildlife to help manage the resources there in the Great Lakes. This is the Great Lakes portion of it. We just recently had, week before last, we had a meeting, one of these such meetings, and NOAA came in and put on a presentation to us about the status of the fisheries in northern Lake Huron and Michigan. And we were there to basically set some lake trout quota harvest limits for the year going through to 2020 when this consent decree is up. When they got done with that presentation, we were all in awe. We're just, you know, jaws on the table type look because of what they had to offer. The presentation was called the Lower Tropic Food Web, which deals with the microscope. I hope somebody's seen it. I see a reaction. It's devastating what the zebra and the quagga mussel have done to our lakes out there. We taken, it started out with the phosphorus levels. Way back in the day, there was too much phosphorus in the soap, so they took and reduced it, eliminated it. Now that it's plummeted, and it's so low, they don't get the algae blooms, the spring algae blooms that come to the surface that is vital to the sustenance of all the organisms out there. That's all changed. The water's so filtered out. Back in 1994, 95, when the zebra mussels hit, and everybody was screaming about it. It was near shore, plugging intake lines, river mouse, but near shore and shallow. By 2000, the quagga mussel showed up, and that turned in, that's basin-wide deep, and that filtered out everything. You know, the sunlight penetrates so much in the water now that there's no different temperature levels. It's all basically the same level as far as the sun will reach. So that's, you know, this is coming from NOAA's report. It's really messed things up out there. Most important one is like the diarrhea. It's a small shrimp-looking thing that lives in the bottom. Okay, lives on the bottom. That just about eliminated from the upper Great Lakes of the Michigan and Huron. It was large masses of it, and it's just about gone now. So we're all screaming about Asian carp, keeping them out of the Great Lakes, but I think we got to work on the quagga mussel, do something with them. I haven't seen no studies where they're even attempting to control them yet. So
Great.
Well,
Well,
I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrick. Next, Patrick Roberts, National Native American AIDS Prevention Center.
Chairman Calvert, members of
Oh, microphone nearby. Yep.
Chairman Calvert, members of the committee, I want to thank you for being here today. My name is Patrick Roberts, and I'm a Colorado resident and a registered tribal member of the Hopi Nation. My mother is a member of the Clay Clan with the Hopi tribe in a village 50 miles north of Winslow, Arizona, called Shimopavi, Arizona. I'm also a member of the LGBT Spirit Native community, and I've been living with HIV for 30 years. I'm also a proud member and a proud survivor of HIV. I also represent two organizations, the National Native American AIDS Prevention Center in Denver, Colorado, and the Caring Ambassadors Program located in Oregon City, Oregon, as a health policy fellow. We encourage members of the committee to immediately investigate the opportunity to save money and eliminate the burden of hepatitis C, utilizing creative financing recommendations, other recommendations that are in a recent report called the National Strategy on the Elimination of Hepatitis B and C by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. In this report, the report clearly states the elimination of hepatitis B and C as a public health threat is possible by the year 2030, only if Congress and administration provide strong leadership. Hepatitis C is the most common chronic bloodborne infection in the United States, yet it remains unrecognized in the minds of many Americans, and it also is one of the leading causes of death within Native communities. Annual deaths due to hepatitis C have surpassed deaths of HIV in the U.S. While an estimated 1 million Americans have been infected with HIV virus, at least 2.7 to 3.9 million Americans are chronically infected with the hepatitis C virus. Native people have both the highest rate of acute hepatitis C infection and mortality than any other racial ethnic group in the U.S. From 2002 to 2012, hepatitis C infection increased by 82.6 with natives, and incident rates of acute hepatitis C have remained the higher relative to any other racial or ethnic group in the U.S. Funding for accurate data collection and inclusion of natives is needed to eliminate this virus. Data should be streamlined with tribes, state, and national registries, and electronic data collection should be funded in tribal clinics and agencies. We encourage you to review the IHS budget and develop a program which is similar to the Department of Veterans Affairs to test and treat natives living with hepatitis C regardless of their stage of liver disease. The Cherokee Nation's Hepatitis C elimination program is a model that can be used within all Native communities. The cost of end-stage liver disease caused by cirrhosis and hepatitis C infection or liver transplants can be avoided through early screening, treatment, ultimately lowering the cost to patients, providers, and the Medicaid programs. Hepatitis C elimination is possible. In October 2015, Dr. George Mira, Director of Infectious Disease with the Cherokee Nation, developed the Hepatitis C Elimination Program. At the start of this program, an estimated 5,000 members of the Cherokee Nation were infected with hepatitis C. Within the first 60 days of the project's implementation, 8 pregnant women were identified as hepatitis C positive, and increased surveillance or screening resulted in at least 1 new case of hepatitis C per day. To date, nearly 300 patients have been treated for hepatitis C, and based on a 12-week treatment, 96% sustained a positive cure rate. 3 important factors came out of this. Increased screening for hepatitis C results in accurate prevalence rates. Early intervention to screen, identify, and treat hepatitis C infection works within the Native communities, and the actual rate of infection for the Cherokee Nation was 5.8 as compared to the CDC's estimate of 2.8. Hepatitis C treatment is cost-effective, but due to the high rate of infection, it puts a strain on Medicaid and IHS policy, and also within tribal communities. We encourage the committee to adopt the committee recommendation 6.1 in a national strategy for the elimination of hepatitis B and C. We ask the following. 1, we ask for increased funding to IHS and also for them to participate in the World Health Organization's elimination program of hepatitis C by 2030. We request the committee to investigate the benefits of purchasing the rights of direct-acting antivirals to aid in the elimination of hepatitis C by 2030. The Cherokee Nation project also highlighted the need for better data. We request increased funding for data collection and that data collection include all natives for more accurate reporting. Data sets must be streamlined with tribe, state, and national registries, and electronic data collection should be funded in tribal clinics and agencies. And lastly, we ask for the committee to request that the Senate on Indian Affairs Committee conduct an expert hearing to address the state of viral hepatitis in populations that are served by IHS, as well as Native community-based organizations. We ask that Native community stakeholders be invited to speak at the hearing so that they may address their firsthand experience of hepatitis C infection within their community. We have an opportunity that rarely exists within medicine, and that's cure. We need the political will, your political will, to ensure cure. Delaying treatment will only result in tens and thousands of deaths and billions in wasted dollars for healthcare costs and tax dollars. We look forward to hearing from you and making hepatitis history, and I want to thank you on behalf of the Native American AIDS Prevention Center. the Caring Ambassadors Program, and all Native communities within the U.S. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. And I thank all of our witnesses. The new Justice Center, it's quite a Justice Center you put up there. How much money did you spend on that, Justice?
We spent 36 million, close to
36 million.
$37 million, Mr. Chairman.
Oh. And you think it's going to cost how much per year to operate that?
Let me look at this quick. 4.8.
So, and right now, you're not receiving any money out of?
No, we're not. We're funding it. The tribe is funding it right now.
Okay. So,
It's only partially open just to
and
detain.
and before you built that, did they assure you that they would, if you built it, they would pay the operating costs of that?
Yes, and it was built to their specifications, so. yeah.
So it was built to their specs and with the assurity that they would pick up the operating costs, and they have not done so.
Exactly.
So we'll follow through on that, see where that's at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And certainly, we're interested in energy production, so we need to take a look at, I think, energy production throughout the West, because it seems that, we may have some opportunities to work together with both the BLM and with the Department of Energy, and, just maybe
Yes.
figure out a way to do this
We can
more
gather
effectively.
those
Well,
together.
I just said that because the Department of Energy is under his jurisdiction. so-
Okay.
So maybe we can work together to resolve that.
Be great.
And certainly the Great Lakes, we've been hearing a lot about, I hear a lot about the Great Lakes, Mr. Carrick, because to my left here, we have a great advocate for that, and, actually two of them, and, that's right, I got two people here.
Perfect.
Plus we have on our side, we have a few. So we, as you notice, in the 2017 bill, we did not cut back on the Great Lakes.
We
and-
noticed.
And
We noticed. Thank you.
we're big supporters of all that fresh water, especially if we could export it to California, but they tell me I can't do it. So, darn.
We need some more medical care.
Yeah, right.
You go in and
And I guess the good news about hepatitis C and B is that we have a cure for it now.
There is a cure for it.
Yeah, so the bad news is, I just bring that mic up, the bad news, matter of fact, I had a close friend he's still a close friend, happily he's cured, but he didn't even know he had hepatitis. He got in a traffic accident early in his life, and they got a blood test and found out he had it.
Roughly about 70% of natives don't know that they have hepatitis C or have been exposed to hepatitis C.
So they never had a blood test.
Correct.
And, but it's, $100,000 per treatment to cure it, is that about right?
Correct. And the current Medicaid policy for most states is there are 5 different fibrosis scores that you have to wait for. Most states are fibrosis stage 3, but at that point, you're already on death's door when it comes to that. So sometimes treatment is available at that stage, but it's not always effective.
Right, yeah. So but it has been, even with severe cases, over 90% effective on
Yes,
cure.
correct.
Yeah, so that's encouraging. As I think of these drugs are out there longer, the price of these drugs are going to come down. But right now, it's very, very expensive. But we'll look into that. Ms. McCullum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to your point, Mr. Roberts, about having a hearing. We can have, there are ways, there are health groups, caucuses, bipartisan, that put together hearings quite often. And so I'll get your card afterwards, and we'll work with some members. We can have an informal hearing, and staff can attend and figure out some legislation and some policies in that to work forward on it. It's interesting that you brought this up, because I had a health disparities meeting with the different populations within my congressional district last summer. I spent a lot of time, and this kind of came up, but it came up very quietly.
Yeah.
And it didn't, the numbers weren't there the way that you pointed it out.
I can certainly
So-
provide you additional numbers if you'd
So
like.
I'm going to go back and talk to my community health clinics and then talk to our state epidemiologist about it, because I know this is, as the chairman pointed out, to be tested for it, to find out you have it before it activates in your system,
Correct.
causes permanent damage, is cost savings for the healthcare system, but it's the cost savings to you as a human being, there's no price tag you can put on it.
And
like
as a
that.
community, because hepatitis C just not only affects the patient or the person that's infected by hepatitis C, but community at large, because we're so ingrained in our family and culture and community. This virus really has an effect on community at large and how it affects people's perceptions and emotion and spiritual state.
So do you have to ask for it to be tested in most states, or are some states retroactively?
Mostly in
kinda-
every clinic, you have to specifically ask for hepatitis C screening.
So
It's
you
not
could-
provided, but with the Cherokee Nation's elimination program, they're testing anybody 20 or above, and they're also screening in the dental clinics. So we're trying to adopt that process and that policy across all nations. So it's just a matter of education and making sure that people are aware.
Because you can always refuse to have it tested, but if no
Exactly.
one offers to have it tested, you don't know to ask.
Correct, yes.
Thank you, and the Great Lakes, I couldn't agree with you more with all the problems that we're having, not only in the Great Lakes, but all of our lakes, with some of the algae and all the quagga mussels and zebra mussels, and I mean, we're just getting really overwhelmed with a lot of invasive species. And the other thing that we're seeing in the north is all the salt runoff accumulating over years, changing the alkaline of our lakes. And we're not so sure that that's reversible.
Right.
So that's another issue that we're starting to have to look at. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Ms. Capter.
I just want to thank our witnesses very much for being with us today. Being an Ohioan, I'm interested in where the Ottawa Resource Authority, Chippewa Ottawa Resource Authority is located.
In Sault Ste. Marie,
Way up in the Sioux.
right,
Okay.
right at the headwaters of Bishop, all three lakes, where the St. Mary's River dumps into the other ones, so,
You haven't seen any Asian carp up there, have you?
no,
Okay, we don't want those.
no, we don't want them. We don't want quagga mussels up there neither. We're fortunate in Lake Superior right now, they're not there because of the fresh, cold water, but don't know. I hear you.
While
No,
we
it's
have
not.
such
Try smoking
distinguished
it.
witnesses in front of us, I feel obligated to say that we've worked very hard over the years with little success with the Department of Interior to try to get interpretation of the tribal history that has been a part of the Northwest Territory, America's first frontier after the 13 colonies. And I just wish to place that on the record because I think that your life and the lives of those you represent are just as important as those who happen to live west of the Mississippi River and have much fuller interpretation. So I would hope, just know you have an ally on this committee, maybe more than one, to take a look at the entire region. I represent counties called Cuyahoga, Erie, Ottawa. The lake I represent is called Erie. And there's a huge history that the Department of Interior just puts its hands up like this. I would think that they could put a little more due diligence into the histories of our particular region of the country. So just thank you very much for coming here today and testifying.
Right, our pleasure.
Thank you, and
Pleasure. Thank you for listening.
I don't want
Mr. Chairman,
okay.
let me ask just a
sorry.
really quick question. Tony, is the Justice Center, it looks like a pretty nice Justice Center you built. Is the detention part of this for tribal members only, or do you do regional detention?
It's for tribal members only, but we were looking at that and maybe bringing in different tribes into the area if we could. But basically, it's for tribal members.
We've encouraged the department to look at using some of these for regional detention and stuff, and which I think would be beneficial
Would be.
and stuff, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this panel. We appreciate your attendance. You're excused. And we're going to ask the next panel to come up. Robert Blanchard, Chairman of the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Tribe. George Thompson, Councilman of the Lac du Flambe Tribe. And Michael Mick Isham, Chairman of the Great Lakes Indian Fish Wildlife Commission. You'll please come on up. Hi, boy. You tribal chairmen are getting younger every time. Yeah. We can't call you an elder. No way. Okay, everybody get a seat here. Well, welcome. And we're going to start with Mr. Blanchard, the chairman of the Bad River Band of Lake Chippewa Tribe. You're recognized.
Thank you. Bonjour. Good afternoon, everyone.
Move your mic just a little closer. That'd be great. Thank you.
How's that? Better?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you and testify today. Bad River Reservation is located in northern Wisconsin on the south shore of Lake Superior, which holds 10% of the world's fresh, unfrozen water supply. The tribe has over 7,000 enrolled members. About 1,500 live on the reservation. Our people migrated to the Lake Superior region to what is now called Odena, Wisconsin, where it was said that we would settle when we came across a food that grows on water called monomen, or wild rice. It is our sacred food. The Bad River and Kakagan Sloughs area is the largest pristine freshwater estuary in the Lake Superior region and contains the wild rice beds that are important to the people of Bad River. 4 main issues I'd like to talk about today that directly affect my people are the environment, our infrastructure, our health, and our drug addiction, mostly opioids and meth. Our environment is paramount to our survival. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative allows for investigation, education, and solutions to protect culturally significant water resources, historic harvesting techniques, and healthy food access. GLRI funding helps to restore wetlands, wild rice beds, brook trout habitat, and protect spawning grounds critical to Lake Superior fisheries such as the lake sturgeon, which are spiritually significant to my people. Bad River Tribe requests your support for the continuation of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Bad River is one of 42 tribes with EPA-approved water quality standards. The funding we receive through the EPA program allows us to make decisions based on sound science. The natural resource management funding we receive through the Bureau of Indian Affairs supports our fish hatchery operations, which releases about 4 million walleye fry annually back into the rivers and streams leading to Lake Superior, which benefits the entire fisheries of western Lake Superior region. Sustaining or increasing this funding received to the Bureau of Indian Affairs is critical to maintaining the resources. EPA funding provided through the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, and through the IHS Sanitation Deficiency System, which provides vital funds that helps remove critical infrastructure deficiencies, which are required to meet the health needs of the Bad River Band. The second issue I'd like to discuss is our infrastructure. Safety Law, which was designed to supplement the Tribal Roads Maintenance Program, is now the main roads funding for a majority of tribes. An increase of this funding is necessary to maintain and improve the transportation infrastructure of the Bad River community. Roads, bridges, and trails are an important part of our daily lives for access to work and access to recreational activities and the economic benefit they provide. The development of a recreational trail across the reservation is a project that my tribe wants to continue to develop, in part with the use of Bureau of Indian Affairs funding. A project such as this would have huge positive impact, not only for the tribe, but our neighbors as well, as this would connect Iron County and Ashland County and Bayfield County together, and we'd have that as a corridor going through. So we ask that you consider the needed increase in funding for needed improvements in our infrastructure. The final 2 issues I'd like to talk about are healthcare and drug addictions. Our tribe is very proud of our newly tribal health and wellness center. However, with the drug epidemic growing, our ability to treat the drug addictions and help families while maintaining normal health services has strained our resources to the maximum. Indian Health Service alone cannot provide the funds required. Our clinic relies heavily on third-party funding, and a decrease in Medicaid funding will only increase the financial burden on the healthcare system. The Bad River tribal community has seen an influx of illegal drugs being distributed on the reservation. Meth is #1 drug. Our social services programs are experiencing an increase in caseload involving tribal members who are struggling with the drug addiction and violence, as well as children suffering from neglect, abuse, and trauma due to violence. Due to the meth epidemic, we ask that the Department of Interior Bureau of Indian Affairs funding be increased to address these issues. Our housing authority recently reported that 9 residential homes tested positive for meth. These hazardous waste properties require special staff training and equipment to make the properties livable again. This has cost our housing authority an additional $60,000 in the past 90 days. So it is essential to keep working to honor treaties with my tribe and my neighbor tribes in the Western Lake Superior region and to provide funding to support pristine water and air, safe and sanitary housing, and related infrastructure, and adequate health care through the Indian Health Service. It's like say miigwech. Thank you for your time, and may the Great Spirit be with you all.
Thank you. Next, George Thompson, councilman for the Lac de Flambeau tribe. Okay, got it. Okay.
I have some additional information.
Thank you. We'll submit that for the record. You might turn on your mic and bring it close.
All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Simpson, Chairman Calvert, Ranking Member McCollum, and members of the subcommittee. I'm George Thompson. I'm a tribal council member for the Lac de Flambeau Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians located in northern Wisconsin. I'm joined here today by our tribal president, Joseph Wildcat Sr., and Lara Wanowitz, our tribal natural resource director, and my son, Mason, who's here as a part of an educational piece to see what we're working towards in his future here. So, there you go. Our tribe of 3,400 members is the largest employer in Vilas County. Together with tribal enterprises, the tribe employs 800 individuals. Of that 800, about 25% of our workforce are paid full or in part with appropriations made under the subcommittee's jurisdiction. If Congress were to enact President Trump's proposed budget for fiscal year 2018, the tribal government would have to resort to potential layoffs of these dedicated tribal employees. I'm confident the committee will uphold the federal government's trust responsibility to Native Americans and oppose the White House's harmful budget cuts. We are grateful for the bipartisan leadership this committee has demonstrated with enactments of the FY 2017 Continuing Appropriations Act, which has increased funding for FY 2017. To give an idea of the challenges we face on our 86,600 acre reservation, we have 260 lakes, 71 miles of streams and rivers, approximately 4,200 acres of forested land, and roughly 42,000 acres of water and wetlands. Our waters are sacred. Like many rural areas, we are dealing with opioid abuse and the challenges of creating and maintaining jobs for our citizens and our residents. Please recognize the interconnectedness of IHS, BIA, and EPA programs which help us promote healthy tribal members and healthy communities, the essential building blocks for stable communities. We want to raise our tribal youth in safety and security so that they may realize their fullest potential and contribute to our communities and our nation's future. With respects to IHS funding, we greatly appreciate the $232 million increase Congress provided for FY 2017. We operate our own healthcare and dental program, a family resource center, a domestic abuse program, a youth center, a child support agency, and recently opened a drug treatment program. We employ 140 individuals in our healthcare programs. We respectfully ask for increases in FY 2018 so we can continue to engage in proactive preventative health care, which saves lives and saves money. Wisconsin is seeing a large increase in children born addicted as a result of women taking prescription drugs and using illegal narcotics during pregnancy. Vilas County has the second highest rate of such babies, 2 to 3 per 100 births. Early treatment is critical combined with the opioid epidemic. Our budget is stretched to the breaking point. With respect to the BIE and BIA funding, we oppose proposed cuts for FY 2018, which threaten to undermine educational services for Native youth and adults returning to school. We ask that you please support the important Johnson O'Malley grant program and increase adult scholarships and special higher education scholarships for FY 2018. Education is the key to our tribe's future. I operate the Tribal Roads Program in Lac du Flambeau, so I want to personally thank you for the $3.6 million increase to the BIA road maintenance. A $10 million increase is required for FY 2018 so that the percentage of the BIA system roads maintained in fair condition can increase beyond the current 16%. The public safety issue, plain and simple, and the BIA funding is inadequate. Let me conclude my testimony with natural resource needs. We have a vibrant natural resource program that we are proud of in Lac du Flambeau. Our natural resource programs protect our culture, our health, our economy, and is part of Wisconsin's $19.3 billion fishing, recreation, and tourism industry. Minnesota and Wisconsin lead the nation with mercury-contaminated lakes, and we are a fish culture tribe. To protect our reservation, we asked the committee to, one, maintain funding for Great Lakes restoration initiatives at $300 million, increase the FY 2018 funding for BIA's Trust Natural Resource Management programs above $201 million, and protect funding for Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. 3, protect EPA's Tribal General Assistance Programs, grants, and support and increase funding for BIA's Circle of Flight program to protect vital habitats. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Michael Mick Isham, is that pronounced? Isham, okay. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman and members of the committee, I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify before you this afternoon. My name is Mick Isham. I'm chairman of the Lakoutere Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians and also chairman of the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. In northern Wisconsin, where I'm from, it's still the middle of spring, unlike middle of summer like it is here today. And our tribal citizens have just finished up our main fish harvesting season. Fish is a sacred food to the Ojibwe people. There are 4 sacred foods that we must have at all feasts, funerals, and ceremonies, and that's wild rice, berries, venison, and fish. Those are the 4 foods. And many of our citizens harvest these fish off of our reservation. And we were able to do this for a few reasons. First and foremost, our ancestors told the United States government that we would not sell our land unless the U.S. guaranteed and wrote into the treaties that our tribe would be able to hunt, fish, and gather as we always have throughout the territory that we ceded. Another reason we can do this today is that the U.S. federal courts have agreed with us that our rights that we kept in the treaties never went away in the 150 years since we signed them. And finally, we can do this because we have developed, in partnership with the federal government, the institutions needed for us to regulate this activity by our citizens so that we protect the natural resources and public health and safety. The Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, which I chair, is the intertribal natural resource agency that helps our 11-member tribes implement the federal court's orders that reaffirmed our right to self-regulation. Our treaty-ceded areas cover over 73 million acres of land and water in what is now known as Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and it's in the second last page of the handout there. We greatly appreciate the decades of funding and other technical support that Congress and each administration have provided to our commissions and member tribes. For over 30 years, the federal government has wisely chosen to invest in our program as efficient and cost-effective ways to fulfill the federal treaty obligations at the appropriate government level. We respectfully request that Congress and the House continue to support our programs by funding the Rights Protection Implementation line item within the BIA's budget at no less than FY17 levels. We also request that funding through that line item be distributed as it has in the past, proportionately, based on historic allocations as the primary mechanism through which the federal government supports the intertribal commissions that implement treaty rights in the Great Lakes and Northwest regions. Competition has no place within this line item. As an example of how our RPI funding, how we use it, we'll use the fish harvest season that just ended. Our Glifook wardens, they're at all the boat landings and they enforce tribal regulations, ensure public safety, and provide for Creel teams to count and measure every fish and collect biological data to help ensure population health. Our population assessments lead to harvest and management policies undertaken with cooperation with state agency partners. These assure that our small, super highly regulated harvest doesn't harm the fishery. Glifook's Public Information Office spreads the word about how our treaty reserved rights are implemented to calm fears and to encourage the relative social stability that we see today, rather than the protest, threats, and intimidation that we've seen at the boat landings in the 1980s. We also request that you support, as you've heard earlier, and fund the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative at $300 million. This program has allowed for significant progress in the restoration of the Great Lakes and their ecosystems. It has also enhanced interjurisdictional cooperation and coordination in the management of the Great Lakes. With GLRI funding, Glifook and member tribes have been able to restore and protect wild rice beds, control non-native invasive species, test mercury levels in fish, and provide consumption advice to tribal citizens and bring a tribal perspective to intergovernmental management activities. The GLRI is bringing on-the-ground results, but it needs to continue so that we can finish the important work that we've begun. These treaty rights are fundamental to who we are as Indian people. They benefit us, and the exercise of our cooperative management responsibilities benefits the natural resources for all people. We ask the subcommittee to continue our partnership by funding the RPI line item at no less than the FY17 levels. And I've sat here through a couple of committees here, and I've heard a lot of the issues that the tribes have, and we share in those issues. And we like to say culture is the cure. We really promote the treaty rights to our youth as a way to help with all those issues. Diabetes, obviously, game and fish are much better for our bodies than the Big Macs and such, and the USDA commodity cheese. No offense, I know we're in the ag building here too. But also, the exercise of those treaty rights are good physical activity that the youth need to be in. And when you can provide, a young person like this guy here can provide those 4 sacred foods for the ceremonies, they get their identity as an Ojibwe person rather than getting an identity from a gang. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I know from this whole panel there's a great amount of support for the Great Lakes. I even see you wear a button there signifying the Great Lakes, isn't that?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, Miss McCollum.
Mr. Chair, I just have to say for the record that the fact that someone wearing a Green pin would kind of, poo-poo cheese was very interesting. And being a Vikings fan, I'll say no more.
Cheese is for wearing on your head, not for eating.
I just thought I'd point that out. But a number of the issues that have been pointed out today, obviously, is something that's been brought up. The budget, of course, as you've heard, is we're waiting here soon. I don't know. They say May 23rd. Mick Mulvaney will be coming up here to submit the budget. I think they'll make it public May 22nd. That's supposedly the date. Yeah. I hear they may slip a couple of days. I hope not.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I may both. But the president, this way these things go. The president proposes a budget. This is the Congress. And the Constitution's pretty clear. We'll look at it and we'll go to the Budget Committee, and we've both been on the Budget Committee, and that'll be processed, and then we'll deal with it. We'll see what happens. As far as EPA is concerned, you know, we want to make sure that EPA does their core functions, and we'll be working together to make sure that they continue to do that, especially these programs like the Great Lakes and other areas in the country that we try to clean up and bring back to health. So we'll be working together through this whole process. I'm sure I'll be hearing from all of you as we go through this and hopefully have a successful conclusion. With that, Ms. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Blanchard, I appreciate the fact that you brought up math, because that still is a problem. And the problem, besides it poisoning people and destroying people's lives, the toxic residue, as you mentioned, in the houses and that actually become Superfund sites. The law enforcement that sometimes walks unknowingly into those toxic sites, it's, you know, no drugs are good, and I'm not saying opioids are any better. They're all terrible, but there's a different legacy issue that actually comes along with meth. But as long as I have the three of you here, and we were talking about the role of the EPA, Mr. Thompson, in your handouts, you have a lot of information on watching mercury levels and walleye. And that's something that I know many of us pay strict attention to, the mercury levels in our lakes. I'm from Minnesota, especially if you're find yourself in a family where planning on becoming pregnant. You're very, very, you know, focused in on, you know, mercury level. And then sulfa, with some of the mining activity that's been talked about up in the large watershed. As I was telling people, we're on the Laurentian Divide, so where I am in Minnesota, the water starts flowing north at a certain point into the lakes, into the boundary waters, and that. And so the EPA has a role both in sulfa and in mercury. Mercury in fish, sulfa affects wild rice. Could you maybe talk a little bit about, you know, mercury level and how that can affect your either commercial fishing or your own personal consumption, and why it's important that we actually regulate it? You know, the three of you can say something, or if just one of you wants to. Because I'd like to get that on the record, because those levels, it's the EPA that helps you monitor those levels.
Yes, you know, just as you mentioned, mercury is our people are more susceptible to environmental contamination than the general public because we subsist so much on fish, game, and berries and things like that out in the environment. And so, I mean, it's different if you're just catching a couple walleye or putting a big muskie on your wall, but when you're like us, when we just harvested fish, we put them away like a farmer puts corn in a silo, and then we use them throughout the year. So we did a study, I believe it was in the 80s, when I was director of our conservation department. We did blood testing, and our people were really high in mercury. So with the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, I don't remember what the grant was at the time, but we started doing mercury testing of the fish that we harvest, different sizes, big, small, medium, and then we make mercury maps, which I think are included. And so the DNR, the state DNR, tested them different than we did. They throw like the whole fish in there. But we tested them with just the fillet, without the lips and the scales and the tail and all that. And so ours were a little different. But our members harvest based on those maps, and so that funding was very important to us. And you mentioned meth and all these other things. There is one other thing that tends to get overlooked in tribal housing, not just at LCO, but across the country, and that's mold in housing. And I don't know if this committee deals with that. That might be HUD, but that's another issue that can be a toxic thing in housing.
Mr. Simpson.
I just have one question. What's your name?
My name is Mason.
Mason? This the first time you've been to Washington?
Yes, this is my first time in Washington, and I am enjoying it here.
Great. It's kind of a crazy place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Welcome. Welcome, and thank you for bringing your son. Appreciate it. You bet.
That's great. Well, we certainly thank you for coming here today and your testimony, and we'll try to get up there and try some of that wild rice out. see, get out there soon. I love walleye. I was in Cleveland over the summer for a special occasion. You may remember it. And I had some walleye while I was there, so it was fantastic. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, our next panel is Lisa White Pipe, Councilwoman, James Joe Dunn. Hi, how are you? I think just the two of you, so yeah, we'll just, yeah, I think Lisa, James, that'd be fine. Welcome. Nice to have you. And first, we're going to recognize Lisa White Pipe, Councilwoman with the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. You're recognized and start anytime. Did you get a copy of our? Yes, I do have it. Okay. And you might want to turn the mic on and bring it up close to you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Calvert and Ranking Member McCollum, and members of the subcommittee. On behalf of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share our fiscal year 2018 appropriations priorities. I am Lisa Whitepipe, a Rosebud Sioux Tribal Council representative. We have numerous priorities, and it is a difficult and humbling task to attempt to rank such priorities. Nonetheless, I will discuss a couple of Rosebud Sioux Tribe's priorities with you today. Despite making gradual progress in its economic development efforts, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe experiences an overwhelming level of unmet need. However, this is not unmet need, it is unmet treaty obligations. The federal government has a fiduciary trust responsibility under the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 to provide adequate resources to the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. As of May 5th, 2017, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe's Enrollment Office reported that we have 34,856 living tribal members. It is estimated that 29,628 of our tribal members reside within the reservation. That is 34,856 human beings that the Rosebud Sioux Tribe government and the United States government has a responsibility to provide services to, which include healthcare, law enforcement, justice, education, and infrastructure. And I know that, like the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, this is a task that the United States does not take lightly. I would like to mention our most pressing priority to start with is healthcare. Native Americans have a lower life expectancy than any other racial or ethnic group in the nation. In fiscal year 2015, the 35-bed Rosebud Service Unit had 12,760 emergency room visits. On November 23, 2015, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the CMS, delivered a notice of intent to terminate the Medicare provider agreement based on alleged deficiencies. On December 5, 2015, IHS placed the Rosebud on a divert status. The Rosebud Hospital Emergency Room has been recently removed from the divert status. However, as you may be aware, the Rosebud Service Unit continues to struggle and maintain centers for Medicare and Medicaid accreditation. The Snyder Act of 1921 and the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act expressly provide legislative authority for Congress to appropriate funds specifically for Indian healthcare. We are grateful for these congressional acts because they reinforce the United States' duty to provide health care to members of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. We recognize and appreciate the $29 million included in the fiscal year 2017 omnibus for IHS units facing CMS accreditation emergencies. We humbly request that the Congress continue this honorable progress, exercise their authority, and fulfill their duty by increasing total funding for the Indian Health Service by at least $7.1 billion for the fiscal year 2018. We believe that an increase in funding combined with the IHS reform legislation has been introduced will help to recruit and retain medical professionals and purchase updated medical equipment. For the sake of brevity, I will touch on one more priority. As you may know, the death rate experienced by the American Indian and Alaska Native population is far greater than any other group of Americans. 50% greater according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Unfortunately, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe is not immune to these statistics. When a loved one is lost, families not only face the emotional hardship associated with the absence of that person, they also face the associated costs with providing their loved one with a respectful burial. Under CFR 25 CFR 20.100 states that a burial assistance payment is made on behalf of an indigent Indian who meets eligibility criteria to provide minimal burial expenses according to the BIA payment standard established by the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs. The Bureau maximum burial payment standard is currently $2,500. The National Funeral Directors Association calculated the median cost of a funeral in 2014 at $7,181. This has likely increased since. As you can see, there is quite a disparity between the maximum burial standard payment and the median cost of a funeral. The Rosebud Sioux Tribe has recently experienced an increase in deaths, which has taken a toll on the tribe emotionally and financially. The adequate maximum burial standard payment for the funding of indigent burial assistance service that has left the tribe scrambling to find resources to help ensure that tribal members are provided with a respectful burial. One of the very few local funeral homes almost had to close its doors due to delays in payments from the BIA of an outstanding balance of $70,000. In an effort to address this issue, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe enacted a resolution requesting an increase in the BIA burial assistance payment. The superintendent of the Rosebud Agency mentioned that there may be funds available elsewhere in the BIA budget. However, a statutory cap has been exercised since 2009 that prohibits a transference of funds from elsewhere in the BIA budget into the burial assistance program. The resolution also seeks to address this issue by requesting the United States Congress to take the necessary action to lift the statutory cap prohibiting transference and adding additional funding into the BIA burial assistance program. I would like to thank you once again for your time and this opportunity, and I'll attempt to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. Mr. James Joe Dunn, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Standing Rock Sioux Tribe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Petkire Chante Washtena Pe Chuzap. This day I offer my hand with a good heart. My name is Joe Dunn. I'm the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe's Judicial Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify regarding the FY 2018 Interior Environment Budget. I especially want to thank Chairman Calvert for his continuous support of Indian country as a chairman of this subcommittee and for his work on a FY 17 budget, which did not reflect the deep cuts proposed by the new administration. Although this year's budget gives me some relief, I remain concerned that the next budget cycle and what may come of the new administration's intentions to aggressively shrink discretionary spending. I'm here to remind you that the obligations made in the treaty signed by our grandfathers were not considered to be discretionary, nor were they meant to be subject to changes in administrations or shifts in fiscal policies. The Standing Rock Sioux Tribe has a government-to-government relationship with the United States that is reflected in our 1851 and 1868 treaties. These treaties underscore the United States' obligations to the tribe, and our testimony today is submitted with those obligations in mind. I respectfully ask for the subcommittee's support for three main areas: law enforcement, education, and healthcare. The federal funding for our tribe has always been inadequate. We are doing our best to develop our economies and rebuild our infrastructure, but our aging facilities and underfunded services place us at a tremendous disadvantage when compared to most of the United States. For example, regarding law enforcement, the tribe participated in the high priority program goal, which involved the use of proven effective law enforcement strategies, and these strategies included providing sufficient police officers to cover our large land base. As a result of this program, our crime rate decreased by 19%. Then the high priority program goal ended in 2013 with no explanation other than the BIA had proven its theory that with adequately funded law enforcement, crime decreases. We would greatly appreciate a more stable and satisfactory funding source for the BIA law enforcement so we can sustain and decrease crime rates for the long term. For example, we are currently staffed at 50% of the recommended staffing level for police officers. So we have about 14 police officers to provide law enforcement services for an area of 2.3 million acres. So our staffing is insufficient. The crime rate continues to increase. Along with law enforcement, our judicial branch lacks suitable buildings for our court system, and we are in great need of a modernized detention facility. Our current detention facility has a approximate capacity of about 40, but often houses 80 or more prisoners. So this poses a couple of different risks for the health and safety of the staff and the prisoners as well. Next, I'd like to discuss our education. The administration's near flatline funding for virtually all aspects of Bureau of Indian Education programs fails to consider population growth, increased costs, or inflation. Lack of adequate teacher housing is a great detriment to the community. When we have this problem with having to import people to work in our school systems, often they lack the commitment that people would have if they had some stake in the community. So there's a number of ways that's impacted. First of all, their commitment to the children. Secondly, we lose the economic benefit of having them live in the community. And thirdly, we lose them their contribution as community members. So this has been a significant concern of mine over the course of my participation in this administration. So I'm grateful for the recent attention on education of Indian youth, but we are still waiting to see how this awareness will translate into actual changes in our school systems. While an increase in construction funding is a positive sign, unfortunately, not a single school in the Great Plains is slated for new construction under the existing methodology for new BIA school construction. Our Bullhead School is over 100 years old, but it will be decades before the children's needs are fully met in this community. And so we ask you for increased funding for these schools and also direct the Department of Interior to examine and propose a new funding strategy that is both fair and just for our children. Finally, we're alarmed by the deep cuts proposed to all health programs in FY18, and we encourage Congress to continue health investments and prioritize IHS preventative health care service programs, such as the Diabetes Grant Program. Increased funding above the modest increase provided for in FY17 is also necessary to meet Indian Health Service priorities, especially funding for healthcare personnel. In many instances, if additional funding for clinical services and preventative health programs were available, illness and injuries could be treated at their initial stages or prevented altogether. This is especially important at Standing Rock, where many of our members' health problems could be addressed if timely preventative care were available. We have an ongoing methamphetamine and opioid addiction problem that we are struggling to address because of inadequate funding and availability of facilities and services. We also support FY18 increases in dental health, mental health, and purchase and referred care, which has been historically underfunded. Also, we have the same concern that you've heard from others today about the environment and the culture. As you may be aware, the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe has been in the news over the course of this past year, and so we support the sustained funding for EPA programming as well. And I assure you that all of these needs are very real, and I personally extend an invitation to you to come to Standing Rock.
Well, we'd love to get out there. We'd love to get out there.
So on behalf of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, I'd like to thank you for this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. First, I want to say to to Ms. Pipe. It's an embarrassment that that this accreditation issue occurred and we need to fix it. I know that was a priority for us to patch this and get the back your accreditations, but you know, these facilities, as you point out, and both Mr. Dunn and yourself, is that are old and need to be replaced. And we need to come up with methodologies to not just replace your health facilities, but also the schools. And we're trying to figure out a way to do that. You know, we have over $1 billion requirement in Indian country for school construction, and certainly health is a big challenge also. We're going to be working with Mr. Chairman Cole, who has significant jurisdiction in Labor H, and obviously is very interested in these issues. And so we're going to see if we can't figure out a way to work together and see if we can get more money flowing into resolving some of these healthcare and education issues. And certainly law enforcement is a big problem in any country. You hear that consistently with all the tribes. Obviously drugs is a big problem, and this opioid epidemic is costing 1,000 lives a day in the United States. 1,000 people.
We are experiencing a very
Microphone.
Methamphetamine epidemic right now, and it's affecting our housing. They're being tested at high levels, which is leading to evictions or relinquishments of the homes. So right now, our council is working on a strategic action plan to get something in place, but we also need help with the tribal courts, and I have it listed in my list of priorities with the staffing. And I did talk to somebody at SAMHSA today, and they had informed me that they can. Our meth treatment center is underfunded also, and so they can. SAMHSA will provide funding for a meth treatment center for if we have a drug court for a year, but we need to find the funding to fully staff our court.
We'll see what we can do to help. Ms. McCullum.
Thank you. I just want to point out and ask you to comment on some of the things that, and as the chairman said rightly, the president proposes the budget. The budget committee under the Republicans will come up with a different budget. But one of the things that I know, even within Congress sometimes comes under attack or for cuts, is the low-income heating and energy assistance program. And I have to believe that a lot of your tribal members, especially the elders, really rely on that. And as you know, that was zeroed out in the president's budget. I don't think it'll be at zero in the budget here. I don't get to set those numbers, but I'm concerned about any cuts into that. Maybe if you could explain on the record how many people are reliable on that. You usually have one person who administers it. You describe the program because it's a life savings program in the areas that you two represent.
This is a great concern to Standing Rock. We have a high number of people because of the state of our economy. We have a lot of people that are unemployed or underemployed. And so the result is that this program is very helpful to assisting them to make it through. That's a real challenge for a lot of our members. A lot of them are living in substandard housing. Whatever it is that's available, they're living in, and they got to find a way to heat them things through the 30 below wind chill winter. So this is a great concern. So any assistance with the fuel assistance program is greatly appreciated. I assure you.
Were you responsible for that internet hit that was the one where it showed this cold weather outside? And I don't know. I don't know if you remember that, but I probably shouldn't have brought that up. But it was 30 below zero. It said it was colder than the Mars or something like that. Don't go outside.
We are.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you an example. Was over this past winter. Now, a lot of those heating systems that have propane and electricity interdependence, we had during a blizzard that where people couldn't move out of their homes for several days, lost their electricity, so they lost their ability to use their propane heating also. So
I can't even imagine
this
that cold.
this elderly couple, they called me like during the second day of the storm, and they said they couldn't even get out of the house because the house had been encompassed in a snowbank. So and there was no electricity. So this was after 2 days of without heating. So they were heating with whatever they could to heat the home. So they were probably using the propane cook stove that they could light with a match or something. So finally, after like the third day, we were able to get some neighbors over there to get the
I
house
can't
open
imagine.
for them.
I'm from, I'm near Palm Springs. We complain when it's 50 degrees. So I can't imagine it being 30 below zero, so.
These programs are life-saving, so usually don't
Yes,
cover all.
our LEAP program, the monies that we allocated for the 2017 funding have already almost been diminished. And last month, we had to supplement the program by, I think it was $60,000 or $80,000. Over the winter months, our President Kendall does set up a program where he has different individuals come in and cut cords of wood. And we went through so much wood this past winter. Now it's going to start going into our resources, which is our timber reserve. So.
Okay, well, we
it's
appreciate it.
disheartening to hear that the LEAP program will be.
Well, again, I'm sure we'll be going through this process. We'll be working all that out. But thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you
and,
for your time today.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Very appreciative.
Thank you.
Pidamay.
All right, our next panel, Robert Flying Hawk, Chairman of the Yankton Sioux Tribe. David Kills 100, Tribal Council Member of the Flozero Santee Sioux Tribe. Troy Scott Weston, President of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And Cecilia Fire Thunder, Representative of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, Oglala Lakota Nation Education Partnership. Thank you for coming out here to Washington, D.C. We appreciate that. We're going to recognize Mr. Hawk first, Chairman of the Yankton Sioux Tribe. Recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman
Sure, you got
and
it.
committee. Just wanted to greet each and every one of you with a heartfelt handshake, and good to see you. Traditionally, we have been sending delegations to the city here, making our asks, and we're here again. We have some challenges at home, as what you've been hearing. And we at the Yankton Reservation are experiencing those same types of things. The 4 areas are our health, our education, our welfare, and our economic development. So those are some of those challenges that we have been sending delegations up here to share those concerns. And we hope we aren't sounding like a broken record. But we as a people in this free nation are facing those challenges together, working together as nation to nation. And we really thank you for that. The health challenges are, for us at home, it's a hospital that was working as a hospital, but now is just a clinic. So we would ask that we be returned to that emergency care. An example for asking for that emergency care is some of our members because of billing, do not wish to go in when it's after hours because of paying that bill. So in some instances, it is involves the heart, and it's very critical. But our members would choose not to come in, and there are times when life has been lost. But that's how serious it is. We as a people have lived and understand that we are strong people. But yet, because of the tradition that we have, and with the government saying that we are to be taken care of, and we've taken that a little bit too far, but yet we are trying to achieve that balance, to understand that we need to get back to that strength as a people. And with that, it's having these delegations here to share those concerns that we have a life that is a strong life. But with the education of our children, we seem to be missing some history, some language, some culture. And we have the basics, the sciences, the maths, the biology, and we understand we need those. But because of that lack in the language, lack in the history of who we are, I think that was mentioned by one of the gentlemen earlier, the identity, that seems to affect us. We need to have that for that self-worth, that self-esteem, so that we can continue to be that strong people, to get up, to have that work ethic, to go out, to rake a yard, to scoop some snow, but to get up. That traditionally is what we have in our blood, that we did these things. But for some reason, through the history, as we worked together, we misconnected there. There was a disconnection, and the understanding wasn't there. We share, I think one of our leaders had said, I think it was the Sitting Bull, said as we go through our life, we pick things up that are good and some things that are bad. We put those things back down that are bad for us and carry those things that are good. And so that's us as a people. Our economy is always in need. And with the dollars that are there, with some of the cuts that were mentioned, we ask that they be maintained where they're at and possibly increased if at all possible. We need those programs. We have program developments for us at home. It's a food service program that's going to be started, and our people need that. So we have so many challenges, but they are written and they're given to you for your consideration. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hawk, and we will look at all the written statements, and they'll be submitted for the record, and we'll be looking through them, and we appreciate your testimony. Next, David Kills 100. You're the council member for the Flandro Santee Sioux tribe. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
At the risk of maybe breaking protocol, I ask, would it be okay if Representative Fire Thunder and President Weston were heard before me? They're my elders, and
Sure, just have them have a seat over here.
they're right here.
Oh, right here, okay, excuse me. Oh, I was right there, okay.
Thank
I thought it was some additional people, sorry.
Thank you, David. That was a very, very good sign of respect. Thank you for that. To the chairman, thank you for allowing us here. Representative McCollum, thank you for allowing us to be here in front of you today. I was given this oral testimony, but I believe Chairman Fleinhawk set a precedent here with his knowledge, his caring, and his fight for our people, not only for his tribe, but for ours, because a lot of what's being said here is pretty much everything across the board of Indian country today. You know, our fights and our health care. IHS, for one thing, is our biggest fight, along with education, along with our police department, public safety. Those are our three biggest fights right now. You know, within our IHS, we have a system within the Aberdeen area that allows our PRC to allow a contractor to refer all of our emergency, whether if you get a stub a toe, I mean, it gets to that point. They're being referred out to Rapid City Regional Hospital. We don't have a specialty doctor. We have PAs. The majority of them are PAs. We have a couple of MDs, no specialties. We don't have any rheumatologists. We don't have a cardiologist. We are just pushing this out, and to me, it sounds like it's a corporate move. I don't care for it, because we cannot allow our people to be burdened with having to be referred out to another facility, thereby having the tribe have to pick up a bill to return them home. And some of the people need to have assistance to go after that family member, and the tribe has to pick up another bill. So there's a lot of inequities that we need to really sit down, and that's one of them. On another hand, it's our law enforcement. You know, there was another story earlier. I believe it was the councilman from Standing Rock, talked about the law enforcement. Our law enforcement has issues that we have, well, you know, let's start this way. 3 million acres. Our reservation is approximately 100 miles from east to west and 60 miles north to south. I think that may be 4 Rhode Islands. So we need to understand that as big as we are, we have 33 officers. I think that came from the councilwoman from Rosebud. She was in the ballpark. Within the BIA system, the way everything is recorded, we should be allowed to operate fully staffed at 120 officers. And that's still not enough, because we're sitting at 40,000 members. That's just on the reservation. We still have another 30,000 to 35,000 off of the reservation that come back and forth to utilize IHS, law enforcement, land, everything across the board. Our education, our former president will get in detail about our education problems here, but we have serious issues. I believe you got to come out in 2012 to our reservation. We invited you back in, I believe it was 2012, when President Steele invited you, and the Representative McCollum, Simpson, and Representative Cole. Yeah, yep. Yeah, we came out, and they got to see what was going on. They got to see the real picture. Well, that picture hasn't changed because of the fact that we cannot genuinely operate with the amount of money that we're not getting. You know, we're already we're already running at 48%. And then with all of these proposed cuts, we can't operate. We really cannot operate. You know, and what is that gonna save with our officers who are already working 12-hour shifts, 4 per shift per every 12 hours? That's unreal. That's unheard of. That's inhuman. I mean, I'm trying to pull at your heartstrings because I know you understand how I feel and how we all as tribal leaders feel. And I know you feel that same thought and that same mindset because we know what we have to have for our people. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I wouldn't be trying to jerk at them heartstrings. We need help. We need more money. We need technical assistance. We have to have what we need to have. I thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Ms. Fire, Representative Fire Thunder, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Chairman Calvert, Ranking Member McClellan, and honorable members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Oglala Lakota Nation Education Coalition. My name is Cecilia Fire Thunder, a member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. I'm speaking on behalf of the Oglala Lakota Nation Education Coalition, which represents the Oglala Sioux Tribe's 6 tribal treaty schools. We are all PL 10297 tribal grant schools funded through the Bureau of Indian Education under authorization of PL 93638. We are located on a Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in southwestern South Dakota, and we have 22,114 eligible students attending our schools elementary phase through the 12th grade. Accompanying me today are members of my tribal school boards from across the res, and sitting next to me is my colleague, Dr. Gloria Castanopoulos, Superintendent of American Horse School, also a retired colonel from the United States Army. So that tells you something, Congressman Calvert. Somebody keeps us in line.
There you go.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your service. I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. Indian School Equalization Program, ISEP formula grants are the primary source of educational and residential programs at BIA-funded elementary and secondary schools for instructional services. The most pressing concern we have at our level right now is the underfunding constraints in our facilities operation and maintenance. You know what our utility costs are during the winter in the Great Plains region. It gets pretty cold there sometimes. And because we don't have adequate monies in our facilities, we use our ISEP dollars to substantiate and pay for our fuel costs. I'm just going to drop down a little bit here. One of the greatest challenges we face today, along with the facilities operation and maintenance, is our teacher salaries. The base at our salary schools is $9,000 less than the local South Dakota public schools. As you know, recently the state of South Dakota gave an increase to its teachers within its public school systems, which are within 15 miles of our newer school. We're all on the same land base. As we use more and more of our ISEP funding to supplement the areas which are drastically underfunded, we have less and less money to bring these amounts closer to the schools near us and with whom we compete for teachers. The public schools can offer a larger salary base, but also better health insurance package and a retirement package. Another area that impacts teacher recruitment and retention is the major use of funds to provide health insurance for our employees. Congressman, we provide really good health care coverage for our employees that allows them not only to use the IHS facility, but if necessary, to leave the reservation and seek health care in the surrounding small communities where they have providers. PL 93638 is a foundation for programs to receive federal employee health benefits. We have been since 2012, as tribal schools have been seeking a way for our schools to be able to access federal employee health benefits. So we can provide better health insurance at a lower cost. Congressman, you know, when we started to analyze what we were paying in health insurance, with the premiums that keep escalating, we could pay for 2 teachers for some of our schools. Facilities is something that everyone here has been talking about. Yes, we have some old buildings. Maintaining and operating them is very, very costly because they are old. I'm going to ask you to turn to the graph, because this graph kind of says everything that I need to tell you. ISEP is the funding that we use for instructional services. However, if you take a look at that graph, we'd like for you to take a look at that graph because it speaks for itself. So when you begin to take a look at the total ISEP dollars here when we are over 1/4 of our ISEP dollars are being used. For example, for Little Wound School, which is a K-12 school, we have 800 students. So when you take a look over here for facilities, we're using $753,300 out of our facilities line item. ISEP to funds facilities. And then transportation. So we wanted to show you that we're taking instructional monies and supporting those line items to keep our school going takes away from our students. Down here, American Horse School, Dr. Gloria is the superintendent, and I'd like for her to address that from a K-8 level.
And please state your name and for the record. Thank you.
Dr. Gloria Coates-Katsopoulos, and I'm an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe.
Thank you.
Our schools are K through 8. We have a FACE program. We're pre-K up through 8th grade. When I arrived, retired from the military and went back home, we had 110 students. We have over 327 now. The big problem we have is recruiting teachers. They put a new water plant in. I run a little city. I have the lagoon, I have the water that I have to answer to EPA on. One of our biggest things is that we're not getting funded enough money. The quarters are falling apart. The water system doesn't work, so I put my teachers on a shower schedule. They have to start at 5 in the morning, and everyone has to get in there, get the shower, and be off in 15 minutes so the other teachers in the other buildings can use the shower. So it's very hard to recruit with saying you don't have facilities there. And we've got no money to fix the facilities. It took me 6 years to get a fire alarm system in my school. We just need more. We're not asking for anything more. We're just asking for what Congress said we would get. We're not getting 100%, and that's what we ask. So we can bring that ISEP dollar back, so we can get better education for our students. This year, I'm bringing a teacher from Saudi Arabia and 3 from the Philippines, because I cannot pay the salaries around me.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hear you, and I need to get, I know that Ms. McCollum has been over there along with Mike Simpson and Mr. Cole, Chairman Cole, and I want to get out there too if I can, and
So if I just,
some time and
I apologize, but this last graph you have, Congressman, is very important because we've been tracking our facility shortfalls for the last 26 years, but we only included this. This is a really important piece of information because if you take a look at the shortfalls, these shortfalls that we're picking up out of ISEP, Congressman, and this is money that's coming out of the classroom to support this. So in conclusion, this is what we're going to respectfully ask. Using the 2016 base budget of $33,241,713 for my 6 schools, we're asking for a 17.7 increase, which brings it up to $43,450,599. And in the spirit of relatives, and thank you, David, for what you just did. In the spirit of relatives, we'd like to ask you to consider increasing across the whole United States for our tribal grant schools, the 17.7% to bring us up to par for what we need, and that's all we're asking.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be working on our budget this year. We're going to be challenged, as you've probably been reading in the newspapers, and but I've been hearing from all of Indian country, and we're going to be working on that. I think, did you have any additional comments?
We deferred his testimony. He's coming back to him. He's giving the last witness.
What's that?
He's the last witness to testify.
Okay. Do you have any additional comments to make? You're the last witness to testify.
5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes. Okay. Excuse me.
Well, thank you, Chairman Calvert, Ranking Member McCollum, and the members of the subcommittee. It's a pleasure to speak with you regarding our various funding issues relevant to the Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe. Located in South Dakota, I intend to primarily discuss the funding issue present for our joint venture construction program healthcare facility and the Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribal Police, but we'll briefly discuss issues of other critical programs if time permits. For decades, the healthcare service provided to the members of my tribe have been grossly inadequate. We have utilized Public Law 93-638, contracting to operate the tribal health clinic to the best of our abilities, but due to insufficient and untimely funding, unpaid contract support costs, and limited facilities, we're failing our people. We have a lack of privacy issues in our current clinic, coupled with inadequate space to fully perform necessary program functions. The joint venture construction program found at Section 818E of the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act authorizes the Indian Health Service to establish projects that allow American Indian and Alaska Native tribes to construct tribally owned healthcare facilities in exchange for the IHS provided the post-construction funding for equipment, operations, and maintenance for a minimum of 20 years. Left without adequate means to self-fund the construction of a healthcare facility, in 2007, the tribe made applications to the Indian Health Service to participate in joint venture construction program. The tribe was awarded a commitment in 2009, but took several years to organize its efforts under the program. In 2012, the tribe aggressively pursued the opportunity and hired a Minnesota architect and South Dakota construction manager to plan the project. These groups worked exclusively with the Indian Health Service to design a state-of-the-art facility, which met all federal requirements. The tribe and the Indian Health Service formalized the arrangement in July of 2014 by entering into a joint venture agreement. There were new provisions to the joint venture agreement itself that left the tribe with fewer options to finance the construction. Construction was also pushed back over a year because of the miscommunication between IHS area office in Aberdeen and IHS headquarters that kept us out of the president's budget. With financing in sight, the tribe took the risk and began constructing in March of 2016, regardless of the obstacles faced. The tribe was able to successfully sell bonds in June of 2016, and construction has continued under budget and on time, with an expected completion date in July of 2017. The tribe now faces its largest endeavor. Article 8 of the joint venture agreement provides, quote, "In exchange for the tribe's design and construction of the facility, the tribe's purchase of the initial equipment for the facility, the IHS agrees to provide the equipment, supplies, and staffing for the operation and maintenance of the facility for an initial period of 20 years, subject to provision of appropriations by Congress. The tribe must have funding promised by the IHS appropriated to assure our membership and all non-tribal members that we serve that we can operate our new facility. A continuing resolution for fiscal year 2018 would not allow the additional funding promised, causing a possible default on our financial obligations and resulting in a grossly underfunded facility. The tribe pleads with the subcommittee to fulfill the contractual obligations of the Indian Health Service. We are in the process of needing to hire around 50 new employees to fully staff our facility, and we can simply not afford to use tribal funds dedicated to other critical programs to continuously supplement our clinic. We further have issues with our police department funding that I would like to expound on as well. Public safety is one of our utmost importance to all tribes, especially in South Dakota, where the state is becoming plagued by methamphetamine. We have stagnant funding for the police while our expenses are rising exponentially. We have had stagnant funding for the police while all our other expenses are rising exponentially. The tribal police drive arrested individuals on the reservation. We have to drive them 125 miles away to be detained, which poses serious community exposure during transportation due to gaps in coverage. The facility 120 miles away was the only detention center willing to house our arrestees. The tribe has 2 police officers and another who is in the police academy. With our current funding level, we cannot afford to provide coverage that our community needs. Even a modest increase would have an incredible impact on our small but equally troubled reservation. We implore the subcommittee to consider all of the programs that our membership depends on and to maintain or increase funding. We are trying to run professional government operations and are doing it in the absence of clarity. The tribe is relying on its funding and cannot provide adequate services in gridlock. And the tribe further demands parity with the states in all funding matters because of the federal promises of promoting tribal sovereignty and self-sufficiency. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my prepared remarks, and my colleagues and I are prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Right, thank you, thank you, sorry, missed you for a second. One thing I wanted to mention to Chairman Hawk, there's some other programs too that we'll be working with. For instance, an earlier testimony on saving languages in Indian country, all around the country. The National Endowment for the Humanities is very much involved, and I don't know if they're involved with your tribe or not, but certainly you should look into that, because there are grant programs that are available through the National Endowment for that purpose, to put together a vocabulary of your language which will be kept for prosperity. So you might want to look into that. They've done that for a number of tribes.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
And so that's something that we're important of. And I hear consistently the three major problems in Indian country: of course, law enforcement, education, and healthcare. And I get it, and we have a challenge, and we need to meet that challenge, and we're going to do what we can. I know Chairman Cole is going to work with us. He is the committee that has primary jurisdiction over healthcare in the United States, but I have the jurisdiction over Indian healthcare. So, but he has a much bigger budget than I do, so hopefully we can work together to help resolve some of these issues. Infrastructure is another issue. I know in your part of the world you're working with so many, 3 million acres. That's a lot of land, and when we do an infrastructure bill, which I hope we do later this year, I hope Indian country helps us and pushes that there should be a section in that bill for infrastructure on tribes all around the United States. And that would be very helpful to us to push that, to get that section in the bill, that we can go in and fix a lot of these problems. Same thing with school construction. We'd like to figure out a way similar to what we did with DOD, and is to fix that problem universally across Indian country. It's $1 billion that we have that we need to spend to fix this problem throughout Indian country. And I was curious, on your new health facility, you said you sold bonds. I'm curious, what kind of bonds were they?
On that one, I would refer probably back to the treasurer.
Yeah, I was wondering, because I used to, you usually have to have an income stream. What's the income stream you're using to pay for the bonds?
I want to say we were using
Oh yeah, turn your mic on.
I want to say it was a third party, I think. Yeah, third party billing. In truth, a lot of this stuff with our clinic was done before I came on. I was just elected back in August. This was done before that. But yeah, I do believe it was third party billing, I believe.
Okay, I'd be just curious to see how that, well, maybe the gentleman can, please state your name and for the record, and maybe grab that mic from Chairman Hawk and say your name for the record.
My name's Ryan Kills 100. I'm the treasurer for the Santee Sioux tribe and
curious.
tribal member as well. And yeah, my newly elected little brother's my boss now. So
okay, great. I figured, yeah, you guys are related.
So we're using our third-party revenue streams to take care of that. That being said, we use those.
Can you define what third-party revenue stream means? I mean,
that's what we bill out. That's what we bill out for tribal members, or for who have insurance.
I see. Okay.
So if we can get that revenue in, which again poses the problem to where if we're using that for our new facility and we can't get funding for our new facility and we're stuck operating out of the same tin can that they're doing the best job they can in right now,
Right.
the money that we're using to help subsidize that, our third-party revenue, is taken up.
Okay.
So I mean, now we have to pay for a new building and try to
I was just curious how
carry
that
the
works.
load of what we're already having problems with.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Just curious. Okay. Ms. McCullum?
So your officers go 125 miles if they, then they have to go back to court, right?
Yeah.
They could be in court all day before they get on the stand. And so now you're off an office, two officers. If you have one in court, you're down to one officer for the whole reservation.
That's correct. And the court doesn't even need to get involved if there's an arrest, and they have to take them to Sisseton. One officer, that could take an entire shift, and while he's gone, there can be another arrest that requires the other officer to go to Sisseton as well.
So do they allow, and states are different, and courts are different, but do you have video facilities where where one of your officers could be sworn in over video and testify over video, or do they have to drive all the way in?
No, we don't. But the problem is we have to bring them back. The offense happened in Flandreau, so we have to drive up there, bring them back to our court system, which again poses that manning problem. And if they have to go back to jail, then, we take them back up there. So it's not that we're taking them, that long, that many miles so they can get, they're arrested, detained, and they go to court there. We have to drag them all the way back to Flandreau for court. Am I?
No, I mean,
so-
I understand what you're saying, but so you don't have like mutual agreements or anything between the courts where, where you can tie the court, sometimes you can have cross jurisdiction in that. Yeah.
Not amongst the courts, no. And, I mean, we have our own tribal court system, so, I mean, no, we don't have that. That being said, we have assist agreements with local law enforcement, but that's assist only, during the problem. They're not gonna help cover our shortfalls.
Sure.
They only assist when
So your
extra
mutual
man.
aid, yeah, I know,
Yeah, yeah.
I know how mutual aids work. Okay, and then the question that I have for you, Ms. Fire Thunder, and your board, school board, doctor, so you have these 3 teachers, 2 from the Philippines and 1,
We'll be bringing in 5 teachers, 3 from the Philippines, and I guess 4 from the Philippines and 1 from Saudi Arabia.
okay. So
They're certified, they're pre-certified
they're pre-certified by whom?
by the Teacher Exchange out of Austin, Texas. St. Francis School has used the program, and they're already certified. Several of them have master's degrees. And they come through, get a visa, and come over here and work. They can work up to 5 years.
So they're certified by a international exchange in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
And do they teach to subject? I mean, I don't have a master's degree, but I teach social studies. And if I had a master's degree in social studies, you wouldn't want me for your trig
Yeah.
teacher.
No, we brought them in by subjects that we needed. The BIE had taken basically social studies and science out of our schools for about 6 years. Now that we're building back up, we're finding that's a shortage. So I'm bringing in 2 social studies teachers, 1 science, and 1 intermediate math, and 1 elementary kindergarten teacher, and they're all specialized in those areas.
So you're getting, okay, I'm going to talk to you afterwards for a few minutes, because I'm afraid my questioning is going to sound not as supportive as I want to be on the teacher licensing.
Well,
So,
we started with Teach for America, but, it's such a cost. You bring them in, by the 2nd year, they've got it, and then they're gone. And so when we do our professional development, if we include them, we're figuring maybe $5,000 for 2 years in professional development, then they're gone.
so who pays for the you're paying these teachers $9,000 a year, you're providing housing?
The ones that are coming over?
Yeah.
They're on our salary scale, and, we give quarters. We have the quarters that we have.
That's what you were talking about, you have to sign up for your shower at 5 in the morning.
That's been going on since they changed the water power out. We needed a lift station at each one of the houses and the apartment complex, and it was approved 2 years ago, but nobody ever sent the money.
Because you basically have to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you basically have to live on the reservation close to the school to teach
Yes,
there.
yeah, because-
So that's another hardship, right?
Yes, yes. They have to live there because, when the weather gets bad, and we're kind of down in a canyon, and we get a lot of snow, so we basically make our staff that don't have homes there in the county live right there at the school.
And do you have any telecommunications? I know some of the schools are working with doing some distance learning. Do you have that available to you with broadband hookup?
We're on the BIE server, and we are working with the other schools. The one thing that all of our schools now, all 6 of us, are using the Common Core standards, and we're allowed to infuse at 15% with our language and our culture. So that's what we're using, and our curriculums are all scientific-based research. And my specialty is a reading specialist, and basically we're all 6 schools are using the same foundations for reading. Some of us use different math programs, but they all, meet the Common Core standards.
Well, I know you're trying really hard, all of you, and coming from a state, I live in the cities, but I understand the rural community. I understand a grandfather driving a grandmother, 2 hours to get to dialysis, to get to Williston and all that. And I know you're trying your level best, and we're going to try to do what we can to support you. Thank you,
One of the
Mr. Chair.
things is I had 2 tours in D.C., one at the Surgeon General's office, one at Fort Belvoir, and we used to have care for the prisoners from Lorton. They would bring them up to Fort Belvoir, and their facilities are nicer than my teachers.
I'd like to just make a real quick comment here on what we are working collectively to get our students to prepare for future to be a teacher. So we've got these programs going to really encourage our young people to consider being a teacher. The second thing we're doing is based on the healthcare provider shortage area for not only Pine Ridge, but across the whole state of South Dakota. We started Health Careers Club, so we can start getting our young people to take a look at a career once they get out of high school. So it strengthens our science and math capabilities, and then start getting them hands-on, taking them to Rapid City, to radiology, wherever, so they can get a real sense of a career, and they start preparing for it. So we're out of high school, they can go right into training as our solution, one of our solutions to fulfilling the health career shortage area.
Yeah, the last point I was going to make, in the rural states like South Dakota, North Dakota, Alaska, they have a problem statewide on getting specialists. I mean, they can't keep them in the state. They come out to California, they go to Texas, the large urban population where they can make money. And so it's a real challenge to get docs especially specialists, to stay in those areas. And that's a problem we have nationwide. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate your testimony, appreciate your attendance. This will conclude 2 days of hearings on American Indian Alaska Native programs, honoring the trust responsibility that all members of Congress share. Talk to all your members of Congress, not just this committee. Thank you so much for being here today. This hearing is adjourned.